Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We're in the office with Scott and Wallace. I'm Clint Wallace, as always. Robert Scott and Matt McNamara are often here with me. Today they're attending to other matters, so I'm flying solo today. We're here today to talk about spring break, so if you're watching, chime in with your favorite spring break destinations, and we'll try to call you out on air for that. Before we start with that, first of all, we want to offer our condolences. One of the sadder stories I've read recently in the paper was a story in Liberty County with Coach Crone and his family, and so that town's already battling so much. I'm terribly sorry to read about that. I am happy to read that his son, I saw, got out of the hospital, so we wish him the best as he recovers from that. An update on legislation that we talked about last week. We talked about insurance companies that were trying to establish caps on damages in cases. And again, common sense dictates that caps aren't appropriate for the legislature to establish. They're for juries to decide whether or not how much future medical care is going to cost. And so I saw this week that they had testimony from a child's family who had who had a brain injury, and ultimately his medical care was going to cost millions and millions of dollars throughout his life. Just the medical care, not the pain and suffering aspect of it or anything like that.
Wow.
And so the family was talking that if the caps were in place before his case was resolved, there wouldn't be any money there to pay for his medical treatment. And ultimately he'd become a ward of the state. And so common sense dictates that's not appropriate. My hope is that the legislature sees that and these types of caps don't pass this session. So through those two topics, now we're talking about spring break.
And I'll interject really quick, give you a breath of air for a second.
Sure.
You got Kathy Nixon is watching, which is actually my mother-in-law.
Okay, hey Kathy. She's got her favorite spring break destination?
She hasn't commented. You'll have to tell her.
Okay. Kathy, let us know where your favorite place to go for spring break is. On that note, just a couple of tips. Every year we get calls after spring break of people that have had things happen. One tip that we have related to a call last year, we had a family that went to Mexico, and they didn't realize that their health insurance policy did not cover them while they were in Mexico. And sadly, the dad, the father of the family, was struck by a vehicle while he was a pedestrian there. Suffered a really bad brain injury, and while he's in the hospital, realized that his health insurance didn't cover him there.
Wow.
You can purchase a rider with your health insurance company. Often is typically very cheap, especially if you're just there for a short amount of time. So take a look at that, because this particular family had the Mexican hospital come to them and say they needed $25,000 to continue care of him, or they weren't going to be able to take care of him anymore. And
wow.
So take a look at your insurance policies.
And Kathy commented and said Mexico Beach with a winky face.
Okay.
Which I know is very near and dear to you.
I grew up in middle school and high school going to stay with my grandparents in Mexico Beach. So absolutely. Thanks, Kathy. And Megan, I know it's near and dear to you too, because if I'm correct, I think you got married there, didn't you?
I did. I got married at the Driftwood Inn, and they actually just tore it down. I want to say they started yesterday tearing it down.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. I saw that too.
And the rebuild, yeah.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, I like the Mexico Beach. So
she says travel insurance is important.
Yeah, absolutely. So take a look at that. From a safety standpoint, we get calls every year with people. There's a lot more accidents oftentimes. Anytime you combine alcohol with it creates more poor judgment type situations. Sexual assaults are a big problem that we get calls on after spring break. We recommend obviously using the buddy system. So if you're out, especially in a place that's unfamiliar to you, monitor your drinking, stay safe with that, but then as an extra layer of precaution, stay with a buddy. Don't venture out alone, especially if you're female. At your hotel, make sure that there's locks and that the locks work and that the doors are there, or the door jambs are there and not kicked in. We get calls every year on situations like that. Distracted driving is a big issue. Again, anytime you combine alcohol with situations, there's a lot more chance of people making poor judgment decisions. So those are our spring break tips. Is there anybody else chiming in with any locations?
No other questions right now. Our locations, I'd have to agree with Kathy. I'd say Mexico Beach too.
Okay. We might make our way over to Mexico Beach next week for a day or two. But
that'll be nice.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions about the health insurance aspect of spring break, give me a call. We're happy to answer any questions that you have. Or if you have any other legal issues, give us a call, 222-7777. And again, thank you for watching In the Office with Scott and Wallace. Thanks.